30 cooking tricks from the 1950s. Only housewives knew and we forgot. Our grandmothers didn't need modern appliances or cooking shows. What they had were time-tested kitchen hacks, simple, clever, and passed down through generations. These very tricks could transform even the most humble snacks into hearty meals and turn every dinner into a feast. Today, let's open the pantry of the past and rediscover the forgotten knowledge that once made every family kitchen thrive. Mayonnaise, the secret to perfectly moist cakes. Would you believe it? One of the quiet treasures in 1950s kitchens for keeping baked goods soft and flavorful was mayonnaise? Sounds strange, doesn't it? But think about it. Mayonnaise is made from oil and eggs, two key ingredients that provide fat and moisture to cakes. When butter or fresh eggs became scarce or expensive, housewives saw potential in this common condiment. They used mayonnaise to replace a portion of butter or eggs in cake recipes, especially for chocolate or spice cakes. This trick was incredibly simple, a lesson in maximum efficiency. Just add a few spoonfuls of mayonnaise directly into the cake batter, stir well, and a miracle would unfold before your eyes. Your scratch-made cake, already a point of pride, would now have an incredibly smooth, silky texture that would make you wonder if you were tasting a culinary masterpiece. What's amazing is that this cake retained moisture so well that you didn't even need frosting to find it delicious, melting in your mouth, whether enjoyed with a morning coffee or a cold glass of milk in the afternoon. Ice cube trays? Convenient flavor holders. Today, we have all sorts of containers and Ziploc bags for storing leftovers. But in the 1950s, things were much simpler and creativity was even more valued. Housewives of that era transformed an item seemingly with only one purpose, an ice cube tray, into a true convenient flavor holder. Instead of just making ice, they used these trays to portion and store broth, leftover sauces, or soup. You can imagine a fragrant pot of bone broth. After using some for dinner, the rest would be ladled into each compartment of the ice tray. Once frozen, these small flavor cubes could be easily removed and used to enrich stews, casseroles, or sautéed vegetables. Ice cube trays back then were inexpensive, easy to clean, and readily available in every home. When you saw a housewife's freezer with a few trays full of amber or golden broth cubes, you'd know immediately that they were doing everything right, that this home was managed cleverly and efficiently. It made midweek cooking much faster and more delicious, freeing up time for other equally important tasks. This was a clever and quiet trick, turning small ice cubes into powerful boosts of comfort and making every meal feel much more homemade with an incomparable, authentic flavor. Storing celery in aluminum foil. Have you ever bought celery, used only part of it, and the rest quickly wilted and had to be thrown away? This situation is common even for us today. However, 1950s housewives had a simple but extremely effective solution at a time when plastic wrap was not yet widely available. They used aluminum foil, a readily available material in the kitchen, to tightly wrap celery and store it in the refrigerator. This simple act yielded astonishing results, a perfect combination of material and method. The secret lies in the fact that aluminum foil is not completely airtight like modern plastic wrap. It allows just enough moisture to escape, miraculously helping celery maintain its crispness and freshness, sometimes for up to nearly 2 weeks. This prevented the celery from becoming waterlogged, resulting in no mushy stalks, no strange odors, and most importantly, significant savings on weekly grocery bills. Housewives passed this trick down as a family legend, a secret preserved through generations. You'd see your mother do it, and you'd follow suit exactly, unconsciously but meaningfully. It's a small, unpretentious, but incredibly clever trick, a symbol of resourcefulness and practical thinking. Storing and reusing bacon grease. In the list of secret weapons of every 1950s kitchen, bacon grease certainly stood at the top. Nowadays, we often tend to discard excess fat after frying bacon. But for housewives of that era, this was a source of liquid gold not to be missed. They would carefully strain and store this fat in a clean tin can, often placed right on the stove for convenience. Bacon grease was used to fry eggs in the morning, Sauté potatoes, make rich sauces, or add deep flavor to soups and vegetables. Interestingly, this type of fat could be kept for weeks without refrigeration, thanks to its properties. Just a spoonful of bacon grease could transform plain, bland eggs into rich, fragrant ones, make fried potatoes crispy with a beautiful golden hue, create rich, glossy sauces for dinner, or bring a richer, deeper flavor to soups. Even bland, unappetizing boiled vegetables could become more appealing and flavorful with just a little of this grease. It could replace expensive butter or cooking oil, becoming the backbone of many dishes. This fat, when cooled, would solidify into a firm block and could be stored for weeks without spoiling, even without refrigeration. Evaporated milk, a versatile cream substitute. Fresh cream, easily bought at supermarkets today, but in the 1950s it was an expensive and perishable ingredient. Therefore, canned evaporated milk became an excellent solution, a quiet savior for every kitchen. Evaporated milk came in cans and could be stored for a very long time without spoiling, a big advantage over fresh cream which required refrigeration. And more importantly, it provided the richness and smooth consistency that housewives needed to prepare sauces, soups, and desserts, without the need for expensive fresh cream. They just had to shake the can, open it, and pour it directly into the pot like a secret ingredient, a versatile condiment that could elevate any dish. This milk wonderfully thickened dishes, making simple meals richer and giving food a smooth, silky texture that people could usually only enjoy in fancy restaurants or dinner clubs, which required high culinary skill. It worked effectively in many different dishes, from enriching morning coffee, making mashed potatoes richer, giving fudge the perfect consistency, and even making homemade ice cream smoother and creamier. Most importantly, it cost only a fraction of regular fresh cream, a decisive factor for many families with tight budgets. Do you remember your mother or grandmother applying any of these tricks? Share your story in the comments. Turning stale bread into croutons or crispy breadcrumbs. Instead of wasting it, housewives would cut stale bread into cubes, drizzle a little oil or bacon grease, which they carefully stored, remember, and add seasoning, then bake them until crispy to make croutons. These crispy croutons were ideal accompaniments for soups, salads, or casseroles, adding texture and appealing flavor. Or they could dry toast breadcrumbs in a pan to create a crispy coating for fish, chicken, or vegetables, resulting in a golden, delicious crust. You didn't have to buy anything new, no extra cost. You just had to transform the old, the seemingly discarded, into something new again, something valuable. Children loved them. Husbands noticed the difference, a little extra crispness in their daily soup, and guests even thought it was an elaborate, fancy dish meticulously prepared. All starting from a slice of bread that seemed destined only for the birds. Housewives learned how to turn something potentially wasted into an appealing, triumphant side dish that the whole family loved. And the fragrant smell of toasted bread, faintly hinting of garlic or butter, wafting through the kitchen. That smell alone was enough to draw the whole family into the kitchen, waiting for the moment to enjoy it. Reusing cereal box liners as wax paper. The resourcefulness of 1950s housewives wasn't limited to food. Even seemingly useless packaging was smartly reused. Even things considered trash could find a second life. After finishing a box of cereal, the plastic or wax paper liner inside the box was often carefully kept. Can you believe it? They were used as homemade wax paper or food wrap. Housewives would use these liners to wrap sandwiches for lunch, cover leftovers in the refrigerator, line baking pans to prevent sticking, or use them to roll out pie crusts without sticking to the counter. If you grew up in that era, you probably still remember the sound of these liners being carefully folded and stored in a drawer. Modern kitchens today may have all sorts of parchment paper, plastic wrap, and convenient packaging, but nothing compares to the feeling of giving something a second life, a new purpose. In a way, cereal bags were just another example of how every part of the home was expected to pull its weight, even product packaging. Making salad dressing in old ketchup bottles. In an era when bottled salad dressings are readily available on supermarket shelves, making dressing at home might sound complicated. But in the 1950s, it was a common and surprisingly simple task. Housewives transformed empty, cleaned ketchup bottles into convenient salad dressing shakers. Then they would add basic dressing ingredients: cooking oil, vinegar, mustard, salt, sugar, and any fresh or dried herbs available in the garden or spice rack, perhaps a bit of oregano, basil, or parsley. Then they would tightly cap it and shake vigorously and evenly. No expensive blenders, no specialized mixers, no mess. Just old-fashioned muscle power and a little patience. That ketchup bottle, having finished its original mission, now became a reliable dressing shaker, ready for use whenever needed. The dressing poured out easily, kept well in the refrigerator, and cost nothing extra for bottles or specialized tools. You didn't need to buy fancy bottles or mixers. You already had what you needed right in the kitchen, right from seemingly worthless items. Reviving wilted lettuce with cold vinegar water. It's frustrating to buy fresh green lettuce only for it to quickly wilt and look unappetizing after a short time. Today, we often tend to throw them away, but in the 1950s, food waste was unacceptable. Housewives had a simple but surprisingly effective revival trick. When lettuce wilted, they wouldn't discard it, but soak it in a bowl of cold water with a little white vinegar for about 10 to 20 minutes. This simple trick instantly made the lettuce crisp again, as if it had just been picked from the garden. No waste, no disappointment, and no need to throw away valuable greens. Before pre-washed, bagged greens, lettuce was bought fresh from the store or picked from the garden, and it would wilt very quickly if not used promptly, especially in hot, humid weather. But clever homemakers had a way to solve that problem. They always found solutions for every issue in their kitchen. Soaking greens in vinegar water also helped clean the leaves better than just water, effectively removing dirt and impurities, which was especially important back then when food hygiene standards were not as established as they are now. The result was a crisp, fresh layer of lettuce as a base for salads that tasted like new, bringing freshness and appeal to the meal. Cold mashed potatoes into pancakes. Mashed potatoes are a great side dish, but if there are leftovers and they get cold, we often don't know what to do with them. However, in a 1950s kitchen, leftover mashed potatoes were never thrown away. They were seen as an opportunity to create a new dish. Just add a little flour or egg to the cold mashed potatoes, mix well, then fry them in a hot pan. The result was crispy on the outside, soft on the inside potato pancakes, very delicious and filling. 1950s housewives knew better than anyone that leftovers should not be discarded, even cheap potatoes. These pancakes helped stretch a meal from one sitting to the next, from dinner to breakfast the next morning, and added warmth and fullness to a chilly morning. You could get creative by adding chopped onions, garlic, or even a little leftover cheese from the refrigerator, frying them in bacon grease or butter for extra flavor. Their aroma, the combination of crispy potatoes and spices, made the kitchen come alive, awakening all senses. Children loved them for their novelty and delicious taste. Husbands praised them for their heartiness and warmth, and mothers appreciated the convenience and savings the dish offered. Of the tricks just mentioned, which one surprised you the most? Did you also wonder how resourceful housewives of the past were? Gelatin salads from leftovers. To minimize food waste, 1950s housewives created a rather unique dish: gelatin salads from leftovers. It might sound strange to us today, but at the time, it was an incredibly clever and practical solution. They would put chopped vegetables, leftover meat scraps, or diced eggs into flavored, or unflavored to maintain original taste, gelatin, pour it into a mold, and chill it. Gelatin would encase the food and slow down spoilage, giving families an extra day or two to use those valuable ingredients. You could chill the mold in a shallow dish, then gently unmold it when guests arrived, and suddenly, leftovers transformed into an impressive appetizer, a centerpiece that drew all eyes. Some might raise an eyebrow at ham and lemon-flavored gelatin, quite a unique flavor combination, but others swore it was delicious and interesting. And when options were limited, when food supplies weren't abundant, you used what worked, what could help you get through the day. Housewives didn't hesitate. They became incredibly creative. powdered milk to stretch fresh milk. In large families with tight budgets in the 1950s, fresh milk was quite expensive and often ran out quickly. How to ensure every child had enough milk to drink and every recipe had enough ingredients without spending too much? Housewives found an extremely clever solution: mixing fresh milk with reconstituted powdered milk. This way they could double the available milk with just a little fresh milk and dry powdered milk. Did the taste differ slightly? Yes, a little. The mixed milk might be slightly thinner or have a subtle aftertaste compared to pure milk. But after a while, no one noticed anymore because they had grown accustomed to this flavor, and more importantly, the presence of milk in every meal. It became part of daily routine, an indispensable part of family life. Powdered milk also kept much longer than fresh milk, and didn't require refrigeration until reconstituted, making it a perfect backup option when needed, when fresh milk wasn't available, or in emergencies. Housewives kept boxes of powdered milk in their pantry as if they were gold dust, a precious asset they couldn't do without. And frankly, it almost was. Coffee grounds to deodorize the refrigerator. Before baking soda became popular as an effective refrigerator deodorizer, 1950s housewives had their own secret: using old coffee grounds. After brewing the morning coffee, the grounds were usually discarded, but for them, they were a valuable resource. They would take used coffee grounds from the day before, still damp, put them in a small bowl, and quietly place it on a refrigerator shelf, often in the back or a hidden corner. Coffee grounds, with their natural absorbent properties, would suck up odor-causing molecules without adding any strange smells of their own to the refrigerator or food. It was silent, reliable, and utilized something already available in the house, costing no extra money for purchases. Housewives loved finding second lives for everyday items, turning what seemed like waste into something useful. And this trick was truly a winner on that list. If your refrigerator started smelling strongly of onions, old cheese, or Sunday's roast, coffee grounds would naturally pull those odors out. No harsh chemical cleaners, no complexity or time consumption, just a bowl and coffee grounds. Moreover, it also made opening the refrigerator door a little more pleasant. Especially when guests visited, you no longer had to worry about unpleasant odors in your refrigerator. Adding oatmeal to ground beef to stretch meals. Ground beef, though seemingly common today, was quite expensive in the 1950s, especially for large families. To make stews or burgers and still ensure enough portions for the whole family, housewives found a clever trick: mixing rolled oats into the ground beef. Oatmeal wonderfully absorbed flavors, added a soft yet slightly chewy texture, and most importantly, miraculously held the mixture together, preventing the dish from becoming dry or crumbly. You wouldn't guess there was less meat in the dish, and if you seasoned it well with chopped onions, garlic, or even a little ketchup, common and inexpensive spices, it would taste like a full, delicious, rich meat dish. Some even preferred it that way due to the soft texture and distinctive oatmeal flavor. It was healthier, more nutritious due to the added fiber from oats, and much cheaper, a clever 3-in-1 solution. Stale cake crumbs for desserts. In a 1950s kitchen, no sweet treat went to waste, even if it was dry or old. Instead of discarding cakes past their prime, housewives transformed them into ingredients for new appealing desserts. When a cake dried out, no longer soft as when freshly baked, or had sat too long on the counter untouched, housewives wouldn't throw it in the trash. They would crumble the cake by hand or use a rolling pin to create small cake crumbs. These crumbs were then used to make crispy pie crusts, sprinkled over puddings for added texture, or layered in colorful and flavorful trifles. Some even used them as toppings for sweet fried dishes, like fried apples, or mixed them into new cake batter, creating a unique flavor. No one would guess that the pie crust was once a dry birthday cake, and that was the key: the ingenuity in transformation without leaving a trace. If you had the chance to go back in time, which trick would you want to learn directly from 1950s housewives? Share with us. Canned soup as a sauce base. In modern life, canned soup is sometimes seen as a lazy shortcut. But in the 1950s, canned cream of mushroom, tomato, or chicken soups were true savior, a versatile ingredient that helped housewives solve many problems at once. They were used to turn simple casseroles into rich, hearty, and nutritious meals. Just open the can and add milk or broth, and you'd instantly have a thick, smooth sauce that tasted homemade, without much time or effort. Just one can of soup could cover an entire dish, transforming a simple meal into a small feast. And when you had to feed 5 people or more on a budget, only enough for 2 meals, the ability of canned soup to stretch a dish and enhance its flavor was truly important. It was a matter of survival. It helped bring consistency to daily meals and breathed new life into leftovers, making them more appealing. You could even mix 2 different flavors to create your own style, a little creativity to make meals more interesting. Using parchment paper to roll out pie crusts. Baking pies, especially rolling out the crust, can be a challenge for many because the dough tends to stick and is difficult to move. But 1950s housewives had a small, handy magic that made this task much easier and neater. To roll out pie crusts quickly and cleanly, they placed the dough between 2 sheets of parchment paper and then rolled it flat. This trick was incredibly simple but offered superior effectiveness. Instead of sprinkling flour all over the kitchen counter, making the whole kitchen messy with clouds of white powder, housewives simply placed the dough ball between 2 sheets of parchment paper, then used a rolling pin to flatten it. No clouds of flour floating in the air, no sticking to the counter, no need to clean up flour crumbs from every nook and cranny of the kitchen after baking. It made rolling dough significantly faster and much neater, while helping the crust remain light and even. Housewives found that pie dough rolled out more evenly was less dry, because no extra dry flour was needed for non-sticking, and was easy to lift into the pan without tearing, a big advantage for delicate doughs. Parchment paper acted as a gentle cushion, keeping everything in place and making cleanup easy and quick. Using a kitchen towel to proof bread dough. Baking bread is an art, and proper dough proofing is a crucial step for fluffy, soft loaves. Before convenient plastic wrap, 1950s housewives had a traditional but extremely effective method for proofing bread dough. They placed the bread dough in a bowl, covered it with a clean kitchen towel, and set it in the warmest spot in the kitchen. It had an important and subtle effect on the proofing process. First, it kept the dough safe from drafts, dust, and especially from drying out on the surface, which was very important for the dough to rise evenly and not become tough. Second, and more importantly, the kitchen towel allowed the dough to breathe. This meant the yeast could develop properly without retaining too much moisture, helping the dough to develop perfectly, creating a porous, soft texture for the bread. You could gently fold the towel over the bowl and return after an hour to witness the magic happening. The dough mass had doubled in size, plump and full of life. Proofing bread dough never required high-tech or complex tools. It was always about warmth, patience, and the natural rhythm of the baking process. The kitchen towel was an indispensable part of this ritual, a symbol of simplicity and efficiency. Every delicious baking day began with the fragrant smell of yeast and a soft cotton towel ready to cover the future bread. Reheating stale cookies with a damp cloth. Have you ever experienced the disappointment when delicious bread or cookies from the day before suddenly became dry and hard the next morning? Most of us would probably throw them away or try to eat them with difficulty. But in the 1950s, no food was discarded so easily. Housewives had a little trick to revive them. They would dampen a clean kitchen towel, wrap the baked goods in it, and warm them in the oven for a few minutes. The steam from the towel would miraculously soften the baked goods, making them warm and almost as fresh as straight from the oven. The value of this trick was remarkable. It transformed a second-day meal into a first-class one, cost-free, no complaints, and demonstrated thoughtfulness and dedication. Leftover oatmeal into muffins. Oatmeal is a nutritious breakfast, but if there are leftovers, it can become cold and unappetizing. However, in a 1950s kitchen, leftover oatmeal was never wasted. It was seen as a potential ingredient for a new dish. Leftover cold oatmeal was often mixed into muffin batter, along with flour, sugar, eggs, and any available fruits or spices. The result was moist, dense, fragrant muffins, a perfect breakfast or snack. The value of this trick was transforming an old meal into a new, convenient dish and cleverly stretching meals, demonstrating a combination of frugality and creativity. Resourceful housewives always found ways to turn what they had into appealing, nutritious meals for their families, especially during challenging economic times. Using cookie cutters to shape sandwiches. To make lunches look more appealing and fun, 1950s housewives had a simple but charming trick. They used cookie cutters to shape sandwiches into adorable stars, hearts, or teddy bears. This trick turned an ordinary sandwich into a little surprise in a child's lunchbox. Imagine a busy morning in a family kitchen. The housewife is preparing packed lunches for children going to school or for a small gathering at home. A square slice of bread with peanut butter and jelly, or a simple ham sandwich, could look quite boring and plain. But with one press of a cookie cutter, that slice of bread immediately transformed into a sparkling star, a loving heart, or a cute teddy bear. Suddenly, the familiar sandwich became a little surprise hidden in the lunchbox, bringing bright smiles to children's faces. Dry mustard rubs. In addition to adding rich flavor to meat, dry mustard was also used by 1950s housewives as a clever meat preservation method, especially important in an era before modern refrigerators were widespread. To ensure the meat stayed fresh longer and had a distinctive flavor, housewives would carefully sprinkle a generous amount of dry mustard. This mustard was often mixed with salt, pepper, and a few other basic spices available in the pantry, such as garlic powder, onion powder, to create a versatile dry rub. Then, this mixture would be thoroughly massaged, deeply penetrating into every fiber of the meat, ensuring every corner of the meat was covered. This dry rub had a dual effect, providing both flavor and preservation benefits. First, mustard helped dry the surface of the meat, creating a natural protective layer that inhibited bacterial growth. At the same time, it helped seal moisture within the meat, keeping it from drying out when cooked and maintaining its juiciness. And when the meat was cooked, this spice layer would release a subtle, delicate, spicy flavor, a hint of pungency, awakening the taste buds and providing a unique culinary experience. Refrigerator pickling. In an era without many modern preservation methods, pickling vegetables was a common way to extend their shelf life. However, 1950s housewives found an extremely simple quick pickling method that didn't require complex brining processes, suitable for daily use. They would simply slice cucumbers, onions, or green beans, pour a hot mixture of vinegar, sugar, and spices over them, then seal and chill in the refrigerator. After just 1 or 2 days, you'd have crispy, sweet, and sour pickles, adding a refreshing flavor to meals. This was a simple, quick solution that helped preserve and enhance the flavor of seasonal vegetables or leftovers, preventing waste. It's a great example of resourcefulness, turning simple ingredients into a delicious side dish, demonstrating their constant adaptability and creativity in the kitchen. Canned fruit cocktail as a dessert base. In times of tight budgets or when fresh fruit was difficult to store and too expensive, canned fruit cocktail became an excellent savior for 1950s housewives to create appealing desserts. They would layer this fruit with whipped cream, possibly from whipped evaporated milk, gelatin or cottage cheese, to create a dessert that looked elaborate but was actually very easy to make, quick and colorful. The result was a dessert that was not only easy to prepare, quick to finish, but also colorful and appealing. Children loved it for its sweetness and vibrant colors. Husbands asked for more because of its freshness and deliciousness, and guests never complained. On the contrary, they praised it. These desserts were prepared with minimal effort but offered so much sophistication and charm, a sign of care and skill. You could call it ambrosia fluff or simply fruit salad, but it was more than the sum of its parts. It carried joy and comfort. Just a few spoonfuls of fruit cocktail could bring bright colors to a simple dinner, perhaps just a meal of stew or boiled vegetables, and bring comfort to tired families after a long day. Boiling bones for soup broth. Nothing went to waste in a 1950s kitchen, not even the seemingly most worthless parts like animal bones. Chicken bones, beef bones, or leftover pork ribs after a meal were never thrown away. They were put into a pot with onions, carrot tops, and pepper, then simmered for hours to create rich, nutritious broth. This broth was the foundation for many different meals, from soups and stews to sauces. The value of this trick was an act of transforming waste into something nutritious, demonstrating resourcefulness and a no-waste mindset. It meant that tomorrow's meal was already half prepared, saving significant time and effort. If you enjoyed this journey of discovery, don't forget to like, share this video with friends and family, and especially subscribe to the Back to Yesterday channel so you don't miss out on exciting stories about the past, valuable lessons that are still relevant today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next videos where we will continue to explore forgotten wonders.